What if the pain you feel and the challenges you face are not punishments, but rather an essential part of a mission you chose before you were born? Imagine that this trial was etched in the palm of your hand. Now, pay attention to what Emily discovered. My name is Emily Carter, and I am 51 years old. I live in a small rural town in Alabama, where everyone knows each other. You know, I never thought I would share this with anyone, but here I am. I seek neither attention nor compassion. I only wish to tell my story. It was an unexpected moment that transformed my life in a radical way, and now I feel the urgency to share it with those who are willing to listen to me, especially if you have ever stopped to observe your hand and noticed the lines that run across it, as if a secret you have always ignored is hidden within them. I have always led a simple life. I am a widow and have 2 adult children who have forged their own paths. I work as a cashier at a local supermarket, where each day presents itself as a new opportunity. My routine is calm and comforting. I wake up early, enjoy a cup of freshly brewed coffee, and let the music, which still resonates in the kitchen, fill the air with its melody. After a long day at work, I would arrive home and dedicate my last hours of the afternoon to taking care of the plants. It was a usual routine, nothing that would draw attention, until one ordinary Wednesday, something unusual happened. It started with a slight headache, but it wasn't a common migraine. It was as if someone had grabbed me by the nape and was pulling me hard. I was in the supermarket, organizing some shelves near the checkout, placing some bags of coffee, when suddenly I felt the world beginning to spin in a strange way. I'm not talking about a common dizziness. If the ground weren't tilting, as if I were on a ship in the open sea, I would cling to the counter, trying to breathe deeply. I whispered softly, "Please, not here, not now." However, deep down in my being, I was aware that there was no way to avoid it. I stumbled toward the small back room where we store the boxes and let myself fall into a chair worn by time. I remember the hum of the soda refrigerator, the ticking of the clock that hung on the wall, and then a deep silence. A silence that defied all logic, as if sound had been ripped from the world. I felt myself fainting. I slowly opened my eyes, expecting to find myself in my small, messy room. But no, I was in my backyard, although everything was different. The garden, which had actually been somewhat dry and neglected, revealed an unexpected beauty. It was filled with flowers that I didn't even remember planting, and that old oak tree, which had always seemed sickly, now stood tall and vigorous. Full of leaves, the air was infused with a sweet, almost indescribable aroma. It was at that moment when I heard a soft voice coming from behind me. "Emily, it's time." I turned around quickly, but there was no one around me, just a breeze that caressed my face, as if it knew me. "Time for what?" I asked out loud, not caring about looking crazy. It was at that moment when everything became clear to me. I was not in my body. It was neither a dream nor a fainting spell. I had crossed to the other side. However, I did not see tunnels, nor angels, nor did I hear celestial music. It was just my backyard, a clean, beautiful, and peaceful place. So peaceful that fear faded from my mind. Suddenly, a girl appeared, laughing and running barefoot towards me. She took my hand tightly, as if we had known each other for millennia. "Don't go yet," she said, shaking her head with curiosity. "But you'll see what you need to see." In that moment, the sky seemed to open up, as if someone had drawn back an invisible curtain, revealing something much larger. Deep within my being, I knew it was not a hallucination. It was real. My soul had been summoned to a place that only a few have access to. The girl, with a radiant smile, let go of my hand and raised her finger, pointing upwards. "They are waiting for you," she said sweetly. "But don't worry, you will return. You are a messenger, Emily." I looked at my hand and, for the first time, noticed something peculiar. A subtle mark, almost imperceptible, that had never caught my attention before. It was an M drawn over the lines of my palm. And here comes something curious. The night before all this, something happened that I don't usually do. I was feeling a bit restless, you know? So I decided to take a white candle that I had found in the kitchen drawer. I headed to my room, turned off the light, and sat watching the dancing flame. In that moment, I immersed myself in my thoughts about life. There was no room for complex sentences or elaborate rituals, just the simplicity of the light and introspection. I simply kept looking at the clock, and a question arose in my mind. Who am I really? Is there something more to me? Without realizing it, I brought my right hand, the one with the M on my chest, to my heart. The flame flickered in a strange way, as if it were responding to my thoughts. I blew out the candle, let myself be carried away by sleep. And in that moment, I felt something special. It was as if someone were by my side, but I felt no fear or threat, just a comforting presence. I didn't tell anyone, not my children nor my friend from work. Who would believe me? And the next day, the pain made its appearance. The fainting caught me by surprise, and here I am, facing a reality that I could never have conceived even in my wildest dreams. Maybe that night was a sign, a call that I didn't know how to interpret. Or perhaps it was simply the moment destined to arrive. But today I have a certainty. What we do when no one is watching, those small actions that seem to lack importance, really matter. They matter much more than we imagine. And despite everything, I continue to search for meaning in each of the experiences I have lived. But there is one thing I am completely sure of. Nothing will ever be the same again. When I crossed to the other side, I felt as if I had been called spiritually, you know. As I entered that new phase, it was as if the light itself recognized me. He also thought it would be a terrifying pain, like those movies where you are forcibly ripped from your body. However, the reality was very different. It was more like that moment when you are about to fall asleep, enjoying the relaxation in a hot bath, and someone wraps you in a soft towel with a delicacy that feels effortless. I didn't see the doctors. I didn't feel like I was floating above my body. To be honest, I didn't even recognize it. It was no longer my body. It was just consciousness, that was all. I know it may sound strange, but the colors had a unique texture. Time, for its part, emitted a particular aroma. I don't know if I can explain it clearly, as our vocabulary here on Earth is too limited to capture that experience. As I ascended, not in height, but in a deeper and more complex dimension, I traversed layers that resembled memories, emotions, and places. Everyone was intertwined. I didn't feel fear. Not at all. It was just a gentle force, like a magnet whispering to me, "It's okay. Let go." And so I did. I didn't care about others' judgment. I wasn't thinking about the mistakes I had made. I felt an overwhelming curiosity that surpassed any other emotion. What was this place? Where was I headed? It was then that I stopped. I found myself in a space that seemed like the inside of a crystal cloud. It was bright, but not icy. And suddenly, a sound began to resonate in the air. It was like a choir singing softly, intertwined with melodies of lullabies. It was then that I heard footsteps approaching. And there he was, Jesus. But not the Jesus we see in paintings, or the one from the stories told in movies. He walked with a firm step, but he did not float. His demeanor was calm and humble, and his gaze was overflowing with kindness. The moment their eyes fell on me, I felt a deep revelation about who I was, about who I had always been, even before this moment. Then, In a soft voice, they said to me, "Emily, crossing is not the end. It is the memory." Behind it, something began to emerge. A golden thread floated in the air, curling like silk in water. It was not simply light, it was full of life. It was the ant, laden with memories and feelings. Even the echo of each heartbeat resonated in the air. I whispered with curiosity, "What is this?" And he, with a soft voice, replied, "It is your story. Come to remember." I continued to walk barefoot, feeling still a bit unsure, as if I were trapped in a dream. But at the moment my foot touched that thing, it opened before me as if it were taking a breath, as if it recognized me too. I did not pass through it. Instead, I merged with it. Everything I had forgotten resurfaced. The joys of my childhood, the memories of past lives. The whispered promises deep within my being began to return with strength. However, it was not a terrifying whirlwind, but rather a warm embrace. It was like a family album, delivered straight to my soul, filled with pages that only I could decipher. Versions of myself. As a caregiver, as a teacher, as a mother, and even as a nun in a distant time. I remember those moments when I wrote sentences with trembling hands. They were not just images. They were the essence of who I am. So, that tunnel, or whatever it was. It whispered my name. Not in English, nor with any sound, but directly into the depths of my being. Emily. At that moment, Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and said to me in a soft voice, "You are ready to see the mark." And it was at that moment when everything took an unexpected turn. I thought that meeting Jesus would be the most transformative experience of my life. However, something even greater appeared in my path. Or perhaps, in reality, it had always been present, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. It was a presence, an indescribable essence that filled the air around me. It didn't seem like a person. There was no light. It was as if it were knowledge itself. All that weight I had carried throughout my life, the question that always tormented me. Why me? Finally, I had found the one who had always listened to me. I looked at Jesus and asked him, "Is this God?" He smiled. It was not a simple yes or a resounding no. It was something deeper. Warmth. His presence enveloped me like a silent wave, and in that moment, I didn't need to utter a single word. He already knew everything that I carried inside. The pain I never shared with anyone. The promises I made in my childhood. Even the guilt I bore for situations I wasn't even responsible for. And instead of feeling shame, I found a new meaning. I remember trembling, but not out of fear, rather from a deep relief. It was as if, at last, I was waking up to a reality that I had not been able to see before. I had not wasted my life. Every mistake, every disappointment, every loss, in fact, had been necessary detours that guided me toward something greater. The presence, without uttering a single word, asked me a profound question. "Do you see now?" I laughed. Not out of sadness, but because I felt that my chest had opened to let in the sunlight. Jesus, with a soft voice, whispered, "Now you understand why it had to be Emily." And in that moment, I understood. Every detail mattered. Every book I devoured, every simple conversation I shared, every moment I reached out to help someone in the supermarket when I thought no one was watching. Everything mattered. Nothing was lost in oblivion. The presence faded, but it was never extinguished. It remained deep within my being. Jesus spoke to me with a comforting sweetness. "You are not less. You are not broken. You are exactly where you need to be." It was at that moment that the sound began to rise again, but this time it emanated from within me. And I understood that the next stage of this journey was just about to begin. Do you know what is curious? I was afraid of Jesus, It may sound strange, but it's the plain truth. When I was a child, I grew up in a house full of rules in rural Louisiana. In my mind, Jesus resembled a strict school principal, always lurking, waiting to catch me in a mistake. I perceived him as a serious and distant figure, constantly reminding me of my failures. However, on the other side of that image, he was completely different. Jesus was by my side, calm and present, but without passing any judgment. We walked through a place that resembled a hallway illuminated by threads of light. Around me, fragments of my life floated in the air, memories that danced gently. They were like small crystal spheres floating in the air. Some of them made me smile, while others caused me deep pain. Upon finding a memory that filled me with shame, that day when I turned my back on someone who asked me for help, I couldn't help but shrug, as if trying to rid myself of that burden. But Jesus observed calmly, without showing disapproval. I couldn't resist the curiosity and asked him, "Why aren't you angry with me?" He, with that patience that seems to envelop us from within, replied, "Do you realize how much you have grown since then?" I nodded, feeling a bit embarrassed. That was what really mattered. In that moment, everything became clear. He was not there to punish me or to keep a record on an invisible card. It was like a gardener, diligently tending to even the most unruly parts of my soul, discovering flowers where I only saw mud. We continued on our way, and at that moment, I gathered the necessary courage to ask a question that had been troubling me for years. Why do some people seem to suffer much more than others? Jesus, however, did not offer me a verbal response. He showed me. I observed a child who, without realizing it, healed his mother's broken heart with just his laughter. I saw a man who, with his simple silence, managed to avoid a conflict. I also saw a woman who, after being rejected, ended up saving an entire community. None of them knew it while they were alive. However, everything was intertwined in something much bigger. It was then that she spoke to me gently. "You are not the pain. You are the one who transforms it." I paused, feeling how those words resonated deeply within me. They moved me in a way that I cannot explain. Upon arrival, we found ourselves in a place that seemed taken from a dream. It was a garden, but not just any garden. It was one that defied reality. The colors were so pure that they lacked shadows. Later, I understood the profound meaning of that beauty. There was nothing hidden in that place, with no secrets or shame. The trees vibrated gently, and the flowers leaned toward us as if they knew our essence. Jesus said to me, "Here is where your soul finds its records." Before I could formulate the question about what that meant, a strange structure began to rise from the ground. It seemed as if it had always been there, in a state of waiting. Its material was not exactly metal or glass, something completely different that defied logic. It was an object full of life, and inside it were books. But they were not books like the ones we know. They shone, throbbed, and breathed. Each one of them held a version of me. Suddenly, a tall being approached us, with eyes that seemed to harbor entire moons. It didn't matter if it was a man or a woman. At that moment, I understood that it had no relevance at all. He told me, "These are the decisions you have reflected on, that you have made, and that you will still make. Each choice shines with its own light, and each thought leaves a mark on the path." I began to reflect on moments in my life that I had categorized as failures. My divorce, my battle with depression, and even that time I raised my voice at my mother. However, upon closer inspection, I realized that, despite everything, I had sown small seeds of kindness in those around me. I turned to Jesus, feeling the weight of our decisions. "Everything we choose stays here," I said. He nodded in understanding. "And what about the decisions I haven't made yet?" I continued. "What happens to them?" "They waited patiently," he replied. At that moment, the being opened one of those bright books that shone with a special light. At the top of a page there was a mark. My whole body was filled with a shiver. Jesus smiled faintly and, in a calm voice, remarked, "We are almost there." Upon leaving the garden, we found ourselves in a circular and shadowy space where the only light came from the center. There, in the midst of the dimness, stood a gigantic table. It was made of a material that I could not identify, somewhere between stone and light. On its surface, handprints could be seen, as if they were imprinted by an ethereal energy. Some of these prints shone brightly, while others barely emitted a faint glow. Each of them displayed unique marks, lines, and designs, creating a fascinating visual spectacle. And the most surprising of all, the letter M. I approached cautiously, not knowing what awaited me. "Each of these is a soul contract," Jesus explained. "It is written with light, not with words." I observed one of the hands that my aunt was gently caressing. I recognized it instantly. "It's mine," I murmured with a mix of surprise and emotion. He nodded, as if sharing my astonishment. I approached, and the letter M seemed to come to life before my eyes, filled with dancing patterns that appeared to hold secrets and memories. "Why is it here?" "What does it really mean?" I asked, eager to unravel the mystery. And then, Jesus spoke words that I will never forget. The M is not simply a symbol of status, it is an emblem of mission. It represents those who, even before being born, decided to come into this world with a purpose inscribed deep within their being. Not everyone manages to remember it, but the mark always remains. I touched the shining imprint, and immediately, a tingling sensation coursed through my palms. But it didn't stop there. That feeling expanded throughout my body, even reaching what I had left behind. "JD," Jesus said gently, "you are beginning to remember, and soon you will return." "But why do some people experience this, and others do not?" he asked with an open heart. Jesus did not rush to answer. He took his time, waiting for her to be completely present. Then, with a serene gesture, he pointed to the table filled with luminous hands. Everyone charts their paths before they are born. Some need a reminder along their way. They are those who bear the mark. Others, on the other hand, do not require it. Look at my palm. The lines draw a perfect M. I remember that. In my youth, I used to joke about it, calling it a mystery, magic. I never thought this could have such a deep meaning. Does it really transform us into better people? I dared to ask. Jesus, with a smile in his eyes, replied, "No one here is superior to the others, but you have chosen to embark on a broader journey. The M is like a spiritual alarm clock. It rings at the moment when the soul is ready to awaken." I clearly remember asking it, almost without courage, "But why doesn't everyone carry this mark?" Jesus smiled with simplicity and tranquility and replied, "Some still do not need to be reminded. Others have chosen different marks. The M is just one type of signal." I turned to observe the table full of shining hands and noticed one that bore an MTNU, almost faded. It was that which I decided to ask in a low voice. It responded. That soul still resisted awakening. However, the mark awaited, with infinite patience. That word, patience, resonated within me deeply. Throughout my life, I had believed that I was behind, off track, lost. But in that moment, everything made sense. The M was not simply a medal for having reached the end. It was the beginning of a new path. Jesus, with his deep gaze, spoke to me again. "You have not come to understand everything," he said. "You have learned to live with the certainty that there is much more to discover. And the M reminds me of that." I placed my hand on the shiny imprint on the table, and it glowed even brighter. I felt as if something in my chest had reconnected, as if a wire was transmitting energy again. It didn't overwhelm me with speeches, nor did it immerse me in enigmatic symbols. It simply offered me the truth. A truth that is simple, clear, and direct. It whispered in the ear, "The M is a reminder that you came to help others." That is why it manifests in those who care, in those who listen, and in those who illuminate the darkness of others. Before moving on, just one request: subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot to keep going. After that, we left the room. As we crossed the door, Jesus stopped, looked at me intently, and asked me, "Emily, are you ready?" At that moment, I wasn't entirely sure, but I decided to nod anyway. There is a strange courage that arises when facing someone who knows every corner of your being. And, despite everything, they smile at me. Before we continue, just one request. Please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us keep going. He took my right hand with extraordinary gentleness, as if he were holding a delicate jewel. His palm rested on mine, and in that moment there were no lightning bolts or flashes. Just a certainty, a deep certainty that filled the air between us. Suddenly, everything unraveled. All the lives I had experienced, all the pacts I had made before being born, returned to me with overwhelming force. They were not mere memories. They were truths that had always resided within me, waiting for the moment to reveal themselves. Jade? I felt my legs giving way. Just in time, he caught me before I could fall. In a soft voice, he whispered to me, "Calm down. This is the moment your soul has been waiting for." In that instant, I began to glimpse scenes. I found myself standing in front of a group of people, speaking words that brought healing. I was sitting next to someone who was in mourning, simply holding their hand. Despite being alone in a hospital bed, they still managed to radiate light. It was not about predictions, but possibilities, intertwined paths that led to a mark. I speak in a whisper. When you return, you will feel confused. You will doubt what you have lived. Some will say it was just a dream. Others will laugh. And some will be scared to hear what you have to tell. It is a temple within you. So, why are you showing me this? Question. He smiled again. Because if just one person listens to you and remembers their own light, it will all have been worth it. It was in that moment when it happened. The brand, the M in my palm, a flash, and not just there, but through me. I felt how a gentle flame burned inside me. In what I had left behind, my heart began to race. I caught my breath, feeling the weight of gravity pulling me strongly. Before I left, he looked me in the eyes one last time and uttered these words, "V," and speak it. Those who bear the mark are awakening. You are not alone. I used to believe that possessing a spiritual symbol meant being chosen, being special, belonging to a divine elite. But now I have realized how wrong I was. The M was not just a trophy. It was a contract. And contracts are serious matters. They are not easy to handle. They demand more listening, more commitment, and sometimes even more pain. But in turn, they also bring more light with them. As we walked through a forest of golden trees, before turning around, I asked him a question. Why a contract? Why would someone choose that? He observed the trunks and leaves that surrounded him, and, after a moment of reflection, replied, "Why did they wish to grow from the inside out?" He picked up a fallen leaf that instantly shone brightly before gently fading away. Who bears that mark? He said that they are those who have decided to sow seeds in distant lands, where they may never see what they have planted bloom. And that, without a doubt, requires great faith. I stood there, reflecting on my entire life, remembering every detail that at the time seemed insignificant. The losses, the unanswered questions. The moments of loneliness were so intense that they caused me a deep pain in my chest. And there, in front of him, everything made sense. It wasn't just bad luck. It wasn't a punishment. They were missions we had to fulfill, I murmured softly. So, the M doesn't mean that we are powerful, right? Jesus let out a gentle laugh, one of those that comforts the heart. Then, he said, "It means that you said, 'I accept.'" That word accept moved me deeply, accepting to come into a world full of weight, accepting to forget who I was, accepting that I woke up shattered and had to rebuild myself was not easy. Not only was I doing it for myself, but also so that others could glimpse the path to follow. At that moment, Jesus glanced at me and, in a calm yet firm tone, began to speak. Those who bear the mark are often not understood. They will call them dreamers, exaggerated, even too sensitive. I take a deep breath. However, despite the criticism, they will move forward, because deep down in their being, their soul holds a memory. I looked at my hand again. The lines remained unchanged, but I was no longer the same. As we approached a limit, that moment when I felt it was time to turn back, I gathered the courage to ask one last question. And what happens to those who do not have the M? Are they excluded? Jesus stopped dead in his tracks, and in that moment, I felt how the environment around me began to transform. Then, he uttered words I never imagined I would hear. "Emily, no one is left out. There are thousands of marks. The M is just one among many." With a gesture, she pointed to the sky, and suddenly it filled with symbols dancing in the air. They were designs she had never contemplated before. Spirals, wings, circles, stars. A smile appeared on her face. Each soul carries with it a unique purpose. Some come to build, while others dedicate themselves to tearing down what no longer holds value. And there are those who come to bear witness to their experiences. Other people dedicate themselves to amplifying the good. You should never think that you are more loved for having a brand, nor that you are less loved for not seeing yours. I felt a lump in my throat as I reflected on this. So, why is it important to know all this? I asked, almost in a whisper. His answer came with a calmness that seemed to embrace the soul, because awareness awakens compassion. You cannot judge someone's role without remembering the contract they carry with them. Thus, it led me to a river of light. I could already feel my body calling out to me, as if an invisible thread began to pull me. Then, it knelt beside me and said, "The M may appear on the palm of your hand, but the true mark lies in how you treat others when no one is watching." I began to cry, not out of fear, but out of humility. It was in that moment, just before returning, that Jesus guided me to an unexpected place. It was a circular space, suspended in a pure and radiant light. Around her, tall and elegant figures glowed in such a gentle way that it did not hurt the eyes. However, it was a comfort to the soul. They were angels, but not those with white wings that we usually see in paintings. They were beings of service who moved with a unique grace, as if conducting a symphony that the earth had never had the privilege of hearing. I looked at Jesus, almost unable to articulate a word. What are they doing? I pointed to the center of the circle. There, 3 flames shaped like palms danced over what appeared to be bowls overflowing with golden light. He explained, "They are the guardians of the marked." When a person with the M forgets their essence, there is something that helps them remember it. Those words resonated within me in a powerful way. Does that mean they are watching us? They are like a river that guides us, subtly and lovingly, without invading our space. They whisper through intuition, manifest in those gut feelings we sometimes have, and present themselves in the messages we interpret as mere coincidences. Suddenly, one of those angels turned to me and looked at me intensely. I didn't hear any words, but I felt a complete phrase resonate in my spirit. "We never abandoned you. Not even in the moments when you stopped believing." A shiver ran through my body from head to toe. Jesus continued, explaining that when a marked person experiences suffering, the angels gather around them, enveloping their energy and transforming that pain into a powerful fuel. In its wisdom, nothing is wasted. Not even suffering is lost in the void. It was then that I saw one of the angels take that radiant palm and gently immerse it in the golden water, as if purifying and renewing everything it touched. And at that precise moment, I understood that even the tears I had considered wasted were never in vain. As I contemplated the scene, the glowing mark on my palm began to pulse gently. Then, it shone brightly and transformed into what appeared to be a beautiful crystal rose. Jesus looked at me with serenity and said, "This soul has awakened, and its radiance will touch the lives of many others." With a lump in my throat, I asked him, "How many more?" He looked at me tenderly and replied, "Thousands, maybe even more." At that precise moment, I understood everything. Every time I chose kindness, instead of letting myself be consumed by bitterness, every time I decided to listen instead of defending myself, I was evoking memories in others. The angels were not present to offer us a life without difficulties. They were there to intensify our light, especially in those moments when we forgot that it was still shining within us. When I turned to leave, one of the angels nodded gently. There was no need for him to say a single word. His gaze conveyed a clear message: "Welcome back." Jesus and I walked alongside what seemed to be a flash of starlight. The feeling that time was dragging me along was overwhelming, as if my body, from afar, was calling me. However, there was a question that burned within me, a restlessness that I could not ignore. "Jesus, will all those who bear the mark ever remember?" He looked up at a sky that seemed endless, and with a calm voice replied, "Some have already remembered. Others will remember in their time, and the day will come when many will awaken together." Then, he extended his hand and, suddenly, I found myself looking at the earth, not from the distance of a satellite, but as if I were on a mound of light, surrounded by a brilliant energy that illuminated everything around me. As I contemplated the passage of time, the planet vibrated with life. Small flashes of light emerged in different corners of the world. In Brazil, in Germany, in a remote village in the desert. Each of those points represented a person awakening to reality. Then, a wave was unleashed, as if sound itself transformed into movement. I whispered, "When will this happen?" He smiled and replied, "It has already begun. But the day will come when the mark will be activated in millions." It was not out of fear or force, but rather something much more subtle. The truth, like a traveler who stops at noon, overwhelmed me with a tingling sensation in my hands. I clearly remember how my heart suddenly raced. Not everyone dared to mention it, but many transformed their lives overnight. Some decided to leave their jobs behind, while others focused on resolving family conflicts that seemed endless. There were those who began to write, to paint, or to build communities, thus giving a new direction to their existence. All of this happened because their contract had been activated by an invisible and divine force. I looked at my hand again, wondering, what will happen that day? Jesus, with a slight smile, replied, "A convergence of multiple elements, solar changes, human decisions, and spiritual cries emerging simultaneously. When the land is ready, the mark will respond." He stopped and looked at me with deep seriousness. "And those who, like you, have remembered before, will take care of keeping alive the energy of those who are awakening at this moment. So, is it not necessary to save anyone?" I asked with a feeling of heaviness in my chest. I shook my head gently, remembering that one only needs to be faithful, and they will recognize themselves in you. Jesus guided me to a quiet place, a space smaller than all the ones we had visited up to that moment. A small, round house rose before me, built entirely of vibrant memories. It invited me to sit down. "This part is not mandatory," it commented. "But since you asked, I will show you who I was before Emily. My heart was pounding. Am I ready? I wondered, as I swallowed hard. He smiled, and his gaze seemed full of confidence. Only if you manage to stay true to who you are now, he said, gently touching the center of my forehead. In the blink of an eye, I found myself in a completely different place. I was barefoot, feeling the warm sand beneath my feet. A light fabric covered my head, protecting me from the sun. I was a healer, though in the shadows. My mission was to teach mothers to intertwine their children's hands before sleeping, a gesture that brought peace and connection at night. I taught them to use herbs that I knew as if they were my own sisters. He did not keep people alive through weapons, but through wisdom. In that moment, I understood that he had already come to help. And now it was time to remember. Then suddenly, everything took an unexpected turn. I found myself immersed in another memory. This time it was a man, a humble craftsman, who had been a talented stone carver. He was not one of those who spoke much or sought recognition. His essence manifested in the messages he discreetly left engraved on the walls of sacred places. I had no idea who would read my words in the future, but I was convinced that, at some point, someone would discover them. Throughout each life, I realized that I had left a small mark that revealed the reason for my existence. He had always been a person dedicated to working with his hands, not to unleash conflicts, but to preserve memory. The truth is that helping others discover the light, even when they are not even aware of its existence, is a noble task. At that moment, Jesus gently took me by the arm and said, "You chose to be Emily." It was a reminder that my mission was to complete what these lives failed to finish. The MTA has been present in each of these stories, accompanying us on this journey. It is not about a trophy, but about continuity. Look at my hands. Now I feel them in a different way. They are no longer strong, but more sacred. Jesus looked at me with tenderness, as he always has. Deep down, I am still the same soul. I have only changed my clothing, and I confess it. I didn't want to go back. I know it may sound strange, but once you've reached this point, the mere idea of returning to bills, long lines, endless arguments, and constant honking becomes an overwhelming burden. I whispered to my heart, I don't know if I can face all of this again. I'm not sure I have the courage needed to do something truly great, to change the world. It smiled softly, with that tenderness that always characterized it, and said to me, "Who said that was the goal?" It was His dad, who seemed confused, but he continued, "You didn't come to this world to fulfill a titanic mission. You were sent to remember something and share that memory with love." I let it rest in my mind. "You were not returning with an obligation," he told me, "but with a message." With a trembling voice, I asked him, "What message?" Then, he placed his hand over my heart and spoke with firmness and sweetness. "Tell them they are not forgotten, that their pain has a purpose, that the mark they bear is not a burden, but a pact forged with love." A gentle breeze swept through the room, even though there were no windows. "And what will I do when I return?" he asked. He whispered, "Be a part of this. Be kind. Write. Listen. Hug people. Pray even when no one is watching you. Be the proof that light exists, even in supermarket lines and waiting rooms." I laughed through tears. "So just be?" He nodded with a smile. "Just be, but be like someone who now remembers." It was in that moment when I felt it. A strange sensation of falling upward, as if I were being lifted and lowered at the same time. I began to feel a gentle tingling in my hands. My chest was heaving intensely, and suddenly, everything fell into a deep silence. I was coming back, but I was no longer the same person I had been before. I took a deep breath, and that breath became gentle, as if I had finally found my way back home. The first thing that caught my attention was a soft beeping that resonated around me. Machines. A hospital, perhaps? I didn't dare to open my eyes right away. I feared that, by doing so, everything I had experienced would fade away. The light, the presence, the garden, Jesus. I was afraid they would become a distant dream when faced with the cold white lamps and the nurses moving hurriedly. But the heat in my hands persisted. In the right one, I felt a tingling, as if someone had traced a sun on my skin. My heart, far from racing, beat steadily. Steady, like a drum that remembers its own rhythm. I slowly opened my eyes. The ceiling was white, and a window was slightly ajar. The air was filled with a smell of alcohol and marigolds. My sister must have brought flowers again. I was in a hospital bed, alone, but not entirely alone. I whispered. And in that moment, I understood everything. Everything had changed, but nothing seemed different. Curious, isn't it? You cross dimensions, converse with Jesus, contemplate the history of your soul. And in the end, you wake up next to a half-empty glass of gelatin. But inside me, everything was in turmoil. Suddenly, a nurse walked in, and her eyes widened. "Oh my God, you're awake," she exclaimed. I smiled at her, a weak but genuine smile. I had never really left. At that moment, they called the doctors. When my sister entered the room, I saw her so pale that I feared she would become dehydrated. Without thinking, I took her hand and whispered to her, "You carry the mark too." That night, when the hospital finally fell into a deep silence, I lay there, watching my palm under the dim light of the hallway. The M was still present as always. However, this time it was not just a scratch on the skin. It was as if it gently caressed me, reminding me that you kept your promise. And maybe, just maybe, that's how life is, right? It's not about waiting for a great spiritual moment, a flash of light, not a dazzling miracle. True greatness reveals itself in those everyday moments, when you decide to return and keep choosing the sea, even amidst traffic, pain, or in your pajamas, on any ordinary Tuesday. And that's why I'm sharing all of this with you right now. It is not to persuade you of anything. I am not looking to found a religion. I do not do it because I consider myself special. I do it because I know you are there, because you have always felt that you were waiting for something, even without knowing exactly what it was. You, who observe your hand, and since you were little, have noticed that perhaps you never stopped to think about its meaning. Allow me to share something important with you. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not lost. You are simply in a moment of waiting, awaiting your soul to rediscover the memory you carry within. Because, if you had remembered it before, it would have been too great a burden for this world. But now the time has come. Look at your palm. You may have seen that M your whole life, or perhaps you just noticed it for the first time now. It doesn't matter. You didn't create it or design it. You chose it long before coming to this world. And what does that imply? It means that you carry light with you. It is not the light of a stage or the light of a seat. It is the light of a campfire, the one that people seek when everything around them has plunged into darkness. Are you the one who listens, who feels, who notices what others overlook, who has the capacity to love even those who have forgotten how to love themselves? That's why, at times, life has caused you more pain. That's why you have been labeled as too sensitive. That's why I have always recognized that you didn't quite fit in at this moment, because your soul has gone through so many trials. And yet, here you are, reading these words, breathing and remembering. Jesus revealed to me that he would return, not with a mission, but with a message. And here it is. The true mark is not measured in kilos, but in the whisper of your purpose. The more you surrender to love, the more you awaken it within yourself and in those around you. It is not necessary for you to try to change the world. You only need to be fully aware of it. Express the truth naturally. Love others without fear. Free yourself from the rush and the comparisons that never belong to you. And above all, trust that you are exactly where you need to be. The brand did not transform you. It prepared you. Now that you have regained your memory, live like someone who remembers. There is someone out there, watching you, also waiting to rediscover who they are. Together we share such a deep and revealing experience. To those who have made it this far, may the blessings of heaven accompany your lives. Remember each day that you are not broken or lost. You are in a process of awakening. We will meet in the next video. May your path be illuminated by love, truth, and purpose.